On today's show, Anthony Davis comes back with a vengeance, gives you everything you could ever have wanted from him in a game against the Atlanta Hawks, including a game winner. How did AD get it done? We'll talk about it on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm gonna get a city like that.
Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs,
Great, Wesley.
your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Still can't leave me alone.
Your team every day.
Gotta be born with it, dogged up.
Let it run. Welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks, your team every day. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member covering the Dallas Mavericks for 10 years. Thanks for being an everydayer, making Locked On Mavs your first listen today and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel.com. Joining me, as always, the postgame prodigy from the Great Slightly Biased YouTube channel. What you got for me, Slightly Biased?
That's what I was a little bit worried when AD had an incredible game. Started popping off. I didn't want any, I'm here. It's just let's keep that out of the lexicon moving forward. But man, he was incredible tonight. Wow.
We'll talk about Anthony Davis. Absolutely monster game from him. We'll talk about Dereck Lively's return to action. He started and played with Anthony Davis a little bit. We'll talk about his 15 minutes and what he showed. We'll talk about Jason Kidd's risky coaching choices between the press in the third quarter and closing with Jaden Hardy. He made some choices in this game. But let's start here slightly. Yesterday on the show, we talked about, Anthony Davis, he's coming back from this injury. Should I have given him a little bit more grace? Coming back from this injury, should we expect something different from Anthony Davis? Do we have to recalibrate what the Mavericks can be if we're getting this version of Anthony Davis? He's averaging like 14 points a game. He's shooting like 38% from the field. He's just not the Anthony Davis that is the 10-time All-Star, Olympic gold medal winning All-NBA player that he was promised, or that he is. And he just wasn't playing to that level. Called him out after the Nets game. Scores 12 points, and the Mavs lose to a Nets team that you were favored by. You've got to win that game. If you're the star and you're going to play, you've got to be better. Well, Anthony Davis was better, and was better than everybody on the court, and it was exactly what the Mavericks needed. He was absolutely a monster in almost every facet of the game in this one. 34 points, 15 boards, 2 assists, 5 blocks in this one. Played under 30 minutes because he didn't play most of the second quarter because, like you said, Anthony Davis went out with an injury at the end of the first quarter, got hit some friendly fire with a Gafford elbow, and the brow was compromised for a little bit there. He didn't want to leave the game. He didn't want to leave the bench at all. But the Mavs training staff convinced him to leave and to go back to the locker room. And so he sprinted. He did not walk back to the locker room. He did not limp back to the locker room or even saunter. He full on sprinted from the one end of the court to the other to get to the locker room. Was there for most of the second quarter. But he came back and he was absolutely massive, including that game winner. That was that's what Anthony Davis can bring to a team. If he's bigger than you, he can get a good shot against you at any point because he can drive, he can handle, he can get to a spot, he can pull up, and he can get just a little floater right there on Okongwu. He was killing Okongwu all night, and he ended the game with that game winner right there.
Yeah, and it's just, we've talked about since AD came back from his injury that, I feel like we've been fair to him, honestly. Like, we've given him grace. I think we've laid out the context. We've said he's coming back from an injury. There's not a lot of point guards on this Mavs team, like real legitimate playmaking point guards on this Mavs team that can make life difficult for a guy like Anthony Davis. But I think tonight was the most assertive he's been since the first game as a Mav when he got injured. Most assertive. It was the most locked in I think he's been, and that could be kind of lazy analysis. But if you ask any Lakers fan what one of their kind of gripes with AD is that sometimes from game to game, you might wonder, well, what was that? Why did we end a game where AD had 12 shots, whatever the case was? And that's what happened in that Nets game, right? But in this game, he comes out immediately as assertive, scores 13 points in the first quarter, has a couple of monstrous defensive sequence. I mean, there was that sequence, I think it was in the third quarter, where he blocks Okongwu at the rim with incredible help defense, blocks Okongwu. Gay gets an offensive rebound, and then Anthony Davis blocks that on a second jump. And then I think Dyson Daniels or Risha Shea misses a floater. and AD's battling underneath the bucket with Mohamed Gay for the rebound. Like, that's the type of Anthony Davis that you've watched. That's the type of Anthony Davis that you get really excited about, because it's this just, all-time great level defensive presence underneath the basket. And you saw that at times tonight, for sure.
That moment you mentioned, that sequence, was an amazing Anthony Davis whole sequence in there. He hit a couple of jumpers early to start that third quarter. Then at the 7-minute mark, you mentioned the multiple blocks, fighting for the board, fouled. The crowd got back into this game. People have talked a lot about, well, feels dead in here. Feels like there's no one here. People showing, clips of or images of empty seats and things like that. And yeah, it's not super amped up like it was in the playoff run last year. It kind of feels like 2023 again, when the Mavs were not going to make the playoffs and everybody was kind of bummed about that. And, there's empty seats, obviously. But the crowd got way back into that at that moment. This Mavericks fan crowd, for as long as I've been coming to games, that's, over 10 years now, they really appreciate when somebody fights for a rebound. And you get a rebound and you put in that extra effort, they're going to give it back to you in terms of like love and appreciation and cheering. They love that anytime somebody does that. And so if Anthony Davis is going to win this crowd over, it's going to be with moments like that. And right afterwards, he scored on the other end. And then right after the possession right after it was the play where he was sneaking up in the backcourt, literally sneaking like a cartoon character. He was like hunched over and sneaking in the backcourt to try and not get in Trae Young's peripheral vision, and then got the alley-oop from Najee Marshall. That was just an absolutely awesome play. And that was when I think the tide turned for the Mavericks, and that was a big momentum-shifting moment. It started with Anthony Davis fighting for that rebound, and then Anthony Davis scoring in two different ways on the other end.
Yeah, and I mean, he got some crazy lobs tonight. I mean, that's an aspect of his game. The Mavs last year turned into New Lob City, and then that kind of went away this year as defenses early in the season kind of tuned to not give that up. But I think moving forward, I mean, you're going to see a lot of lobs. AD, Gafford, Lively. You're going to see a lot of big-to-big lobs. We saw a couple passes between Lively and AD. Like, Lively had a great pass to AD. AD
to Gafford, Lively to AD. I mean, we're going to see all the combinations. Can Gafford start throwing them now?
Yeah, can we see a Gafford lob? But no, you feel the post-up presence, and it does sort of change the geometry of the court. Like, the Mavs haven't really had, people have pointed this out. Isaacs pointed it out. And look, I know Luka's a great post-up player, but I'm saying the Mavs haven't had like a big who can post up at this level. Really, since Dirk was on the team, right? And just the attention that draws. It's not the same as Dirk, obviously, because the floor spacing Dirk had was on another level. But, it's this guy who can attract attention in the post, this guy who attracts, the gravity works in multiple different ways. You can have the vertical floor spacing where you're just so worried about this guy around the rim that you're giving attention there. I mean, the Mavs at times look like an offense out of the 90s. Like, there were some possessions early where Najee was diving towards the basket, and you had Gafford on one block, AD on another block, Najee cutting and then kicking to a corner three. Like, it was pretty hilarious, but I mean, it worked.
I mean, the first couple of AD scores of the game were just post-ups. Post-up. Yep. He had his two first scores, I guess, were post-up floater over Congo on the left side, then post-up jumper over Congo on the right side. And the Mavs were not taking a ton of threes. They were trying a little early on, and I was like, man, if you're a person that was complaining that the NBA is taking too many threes and the post-up is dead, you should love the Dallas Mavericks, because Anthony Davis is going to post up, Gafford's going to post up, Lively will eventually post up, and they're not going to take a ton of threes. They ended up taking it, a decent amount, like 30, what they end up taking in this game, 33 or something. Yeah, 33 threes in this game. But, they're just not going to take the 40, 45 threes like we had been used to a Mavericks team taking. And so it is stylistically, like you said, just a different team, but it revolves around Anthony Davis because he's a player you can build a team around.
Yeah, and look, they're going to have to figure out ways to generate more threes, because in today's NBA, you just cannot be losing the math battle the way that the Mavericks team has lost the math battle. And a lot of that is you don't have your lead guards, right? Like, you're without Kyrie Irving. So that's a big hit.
Well, and Exum, I'll throw Exum in there too, because you just don't have point guards at all.
Right. And Spence, I thought Spence played pretty well. I thought Spence played a good game tonight, honestly. I thought he did good stuff. I thought he did a good job setting up his teammates, but that's not necessarily his game. But, it's just, it changes the dynamic of the game. And this has always been the book on AD, is if that mid-range jumper's dropping, he is an unbelievable scoring threat. I mean, go back to the bubble when he looked like the best player on the planet. If not the best player on the planet, to the second best player behind LeBron James. Like that was AD's mid-range jumper was falling at such a high clip that he literally felt like an unstoppable player on offense combined with the defensive player of the year level defense. So, that's what you can expect. If AD's mid-range jumper is dropping, you guys just buckle up because you're in for probably an insane game.
I loved seeing the combination of him and Lively too, just to start the game. Even seeing that the amount of switchability, seeing the amount of like just size and wingspan and rebounding the Mavs are going to have there, and then we'll talk about Lively a little later. But Lively, I'd forgotten how much Lively was a hub in the offense where the Mavs would just run dribble handoffs to him and just like he gets the ball at the top of the key and then he just hands the ball off to him, and it just makes a hub for the offense at the top. And I think Anthony Davis got a cut in the first quarter, like right off the beginning of the game. He missed a shot, but a cut and Lively hit him with a pass from the elbow. And you're just like, oh man, like this all of a sudden opens so much up because of what Lively can bring. And so I love seeing those two guys together. We'll get into those guys a little bit more. What did they show? What did Lively show in this? And then how did the Mavs pull this off? That and more coming up. Today's Locked On Mavs. Today's episode of Locked On Mavs brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook has all kinds of props and odds, things that you can use to get in on the action. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL and everything more exciting. You can now get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Put it on all kinds of stuff. You've got college basketball games still going on, men's and women's. Future wing, Paige Beckers.
That's right.
I'm putting it into the air right now. If you want to put something down on them, the Connecticut is 7.5 point favorite against UCLA in the Final Four there for the women. So go ahead and do that. And while you're at it, check out, all the other things that FanDuel has. Put down $5. You can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Again, that's FanDuel.com.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad, what we call our listeners. I appreciate each and every one of you for checking out the show and for checking out this show every day, win or lose. Shout out to the people that watch after losses, but also shout out to you if you're watching after this win and I just called you out. Shout out to you too. Appreciate each and every one of you. We have a live show April 8th. It's coming up. It's like a week from now that we're going to be hanging out at Four Corners Brewery the day before Luka and the Lakers return and the Mavericks play them. I have no idea what to expect during that game. It's going to be absolutely wild, so we'll talk about it the day before. Again, Four Corners Brewery the day before Luka and the Lakers come back and play the Mavs. Freudian slip.
Yep.
All right, Slightly. Dereck Lively returns in this one. Plays just under 16 minutes. He was said to have a 15-minute restriction. 4 points, 5 boards, 1 assist, 1 block. Like, not really super great numbers there. But what did you see from Dereck Lively, especially with the combination of him and AD that kid started right away?
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, it's giant. You just noticed it immediately. It's ginormous. I mean, they are gigantic when they're on the floor together. And then you also have to factor in PJ didn't play in this game. So these lineups will also include PJ Washington, who's a big human being. You just felt the size. I thought Lively played a good game. Lively's stuff will always go beyond the stat sheet because he's never going to be a big stat guy. He'll have his big rebound games and stuff like that. But I thought he played well. And like you said, that was like such a big part of the Mavs offense. And they don't necessarily have the guards anymore to make that dribble handoff game really work. But yeah, they run so much offense out of the high post with AD. Whereas these dribble handoffs or him just like passing to cutters, whatever the case may be, I think we'll see a lot of that. I think we will. And I'm also interested to see, how much do we get the 4-5 pick and rolls with him and AD? Because we know Lively is like a great passer out of those situations and stuff like that. Like, I'd be very interested to see that moving forward. When I thought they were tanking, I was wanting to see at least one jumper from Dereck Lively a game, but that's just like the cards.
That ship has sailed. We should do it a segment where we're like all the things that have sailed since the Mavs aren't tanking that we want. Yes. Lively jumpers, Max Christie with the point guard. Yeah, I'm curious to see all that kind of stuff. I'm just so excited to see this combination play because this was going to be the strength of the team. When Nico Harrison made the trade and did all that, he envisioned having those two guys together and to play that level of defense. It's going to take some time. I saw some people posting some snarky things like, oh, the defense with championship, Nico Harrison wanted the Mavs to play defense, and look what they're doing right now because the Hawks are scoring a ton of points. But it's going to take a minute for them to figure it out, and they don't really have the guard defenders right now to really take advantage of this and to be a really elite team. And it's going to take a minute for the defensive scheme to set in for everybody. There's a bunch of new players and a bunch of new guys still to try and figure out. But yeah, I thought that Lively as the hub is interesting. You say they don't have the personnel to take advantage of that on offense because you have Klay, who's the dribble handoff spot up shooter guy. Then you have Dinwiddie, who's the dribble handoff drive off of that guy. But they only do those two. Those two things. You don't have the Kyrie who could do both of those things, or the floater, or the mid-range game off of that.
Or
then you have Hardy.
If AD,
playmaking.
Dereck Lively, dives to the rim.
Then you have Hardy, who you kind of don't want to do either of those things off of a dribble handoff. Caleb Martin, you really don't want to do those things. Najee is just a drive floater guy off of those, and so you are limited with some of the things. Like you don't have guards that can do multiple things, which is the reason why we were not thinking this Mavs team could win a title this year because they lacked that one more offensive guy like that. But yeah, seeing Lively back was awesome. It was awesome to see him in warm-ups too. He was just amped. Like he was so excited to come back and so excited to be back. He had been out since January 14th. Think about everything that has happened since Dereck Lively was gone out.
I mean, he got injured like 2 weeks after Luka did. That's how long it's been since we've seen him.
We didn't have tariffs on some countries before.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
You want to dive into that a little more?
I was just about to say, that's Nick's way of soft launching that Locked On Geopolitics is launching next Monday.
This newsletter we've been pushing, LockedOnDaily.com, is going to be all my thoughts on the geopolitical landscape of this country. Oh, my God.
How do we get the tariffs? Who are we talking about?
Lively has been out since January 14th.
Yeah, true.
Was the inauguration?
I was just about to say, I don't even know.
What has happened?
What
has happened since suffice it to say, it's been a long time since Dereck Lively has played for the Dallas Mavericks. He's been sitting over there on the bench, and he's been cheering everybody on and all that. But it's great to see him back, and so I'm excited to see how this big tandem and trio really between AD, Lively, Gafford, how they figure it all out. And then shout out to Kai Jones getting some minutes there too when even though Dwight Powell's still out there. I think great on Kai Jones to still be in the rotation in a way.
Yeah, to me that shows, and they've kind of hinted at this, I think, with the way that Kid answered a question today in regards to Kai Jones. I don't think he's a guy that they're planning on keeping, only because it doesn't really make sense with the bigs back and healthy.
They need a guard. They need Brandon Williams. Also, I got a scoop.
What's the scoop? You heard it here first.
Dennis Smith Jr. was in the building today.
I mean, can they sign him?
I was gonna say he's a week early. So I don't know if they can't sign him right now. They'd have to wait till they can sign somebody. But I just thought it was interesting. He was here. He was in attendance.
I mean,
dapping up Dwight Powell.
So what is it? In that world, Dennis Smith Jr. and Brandon Williams? I mean, they interviewed Brandon Williams on the broadcast today.
Yeah, they should keep Brandon Williams. I just being a little facetious with Dennis, but he was actually here today. I have no idea why he was here, but he was just hanging out courtside.
I mean, I'm 100% positive they're going to keep Brandon Williams. I'm just interested to see what they do. Kessler Edwards, Kai Jones, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, they've got 3 NBA players there with their two-way guys, which is a luxury to have right now.
Yeah.
Kid made some choices. One of the things I really want to get into is the third quarter press. He just went all out with that third quarter press. Half court, throw two at the ball, and then try and make the Hawks get the ball out of somebody's hands and move it around and all that. They gave up some open threes, but the Hawks missed them. But the Hawks scored 38 points in the second quarter and only 24 in the third quarter. What'd you see from that press?
Yeah, I mean, they had to do something because going into halftime, you had given up 70-plus points.
Yeah.
So 72 points going into halftime. You had to do something to change the dynamic of the game, and Trae was killing you. Like, Trae had 16 points in that second quarter, and it just sort of felt like one of these, this guy's might pop off and have like a 50-point game, and I don't know if we'll have the firepower to keep up with that. So I like the trap, and I like forcing guys like Okongwu and guys like Mohamed Gay and guys like that to make decisions. George Niang, and they hit some corner threes, and that was something the Mavs, I guess, felt comfortable giving up. But it really just kind of took Trae and that pick and roll game out of the equation.
Yeah.
And the Hawks scored 46 points in the second half of the game. So whatever they did worked.
Yeah, 22 points in the fourth quarter too.
Yeah, I mean, it
worked.
worked. It threw the Hawks completely out of rhythm.
And it kickstarted that Mavs defense, and you had to be a little bit more on your toes. You had to be a little bit more sitting up in your chair trying to figure out, all right, who do I rotate to? Who do I figure out? And that's something that we've talked about for years. The Mavs defensive scheme has. You have to have the right. You have to hit the right rotation. You have to recover to a guy, and if somebody's going to come up and help where you get beat, then you have to rotate back to the right guy, and it takes a long time for guys to get the rhythm and figure out that defense and figure out where to go and where to be. And then if you add a press into it, now two guys are off, are up on somebody, and so then you have to rotate even a little more different. But it was a risk, man. I hats off to Jason Kidd. I'm giving credit to a lot of people I've criticized today between Anthony Davis and Jason Kidd, because give him credit. That was a risky move, but it ended up working out because Trae's really their only playmaker. They don't really have another guy, and he has been dominating the ball. He's 11 assists a game, but he's also he's leading the league in turnovers too. So you're like, all right, it's all rises and falls on Trae's playmaking. But all right, what if we take it out of Trae's hands? Then what happens? Okay, it's just a couple of guys that some of them are okay drivers, some of them are okay shooters, but you don't have any more playmakers because they traded Bogdanovich and they've had injuries.
Yeah, and I mean, Trae, 4 points, 6 assists, 3 turnovers in the second half. So you accomplished what your goal was, which was we're not going to let Trae Young completely and totally take over this game. And it worked. So shout out to Kidd. And I feel like Kidd feels like he can try things now, because I don't know if you guys are following. The baffling Kings lost to the Wizards tonight. You are the 9 seed. Like you have it locked in stone at this point in time.
Game and a half up.
Yeah, I mean you're the 9 seed, and you're not going to be the 8 seed, so you've green light to do whatever you want.
It's wild. Coming up, let's talk about that play-in picture. Let's also talk about what else we saw from everybody else in this game. How did the Mavs pull off this win, including another risky choice by Jason Kidd that we'll get into coming up. It is kind of late here, and I need to finish this show, but one of my problems is I need more energy, and I need to figure out how to get more energy. But I have the solution to my own problem. It's 5-hour energy. I have your back. The extra sunshine means that you have more time for fun, but sometimes you need extra boost, too, to power you through it. Whether you're staying up late to watch tournament games, Mavericks games, anything like that, squeezing in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-hour energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Check it out. See what you can get. There's all kinds of different flavors. They have 15 flavors of 5-hour energy. I'm shocked when I heard that they had so many flavors. Head to 5hourenergy.com. Check out all the 15 flavors, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach, mango as well. You can even build your own 12 or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5-hour energy shot at your local grocery store or convenience store. 7-Eleven. Go get them right now. They're everywhere. Stock up today and get energized at 5-hour energy.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
That
ad read is hilarious. I thought that you were being serious.
No, that was yawning.
The yawn. I was like, man, whatever company this is
my button. My button is broke on my thing. I can't play this sound. Thanks for hanging out with the Locked On Mavs, being part of the show. All right, Slightly. Let's talk about the other reasons why the Mavs won this game, and you wanted to bring up Caleb Martin.
Yes, I'm upset we didn't get to him in the TV portion, because he had an unbelievably good game. Like, that was a fantastic game from Caleb Martin. And honestly, from like a Mavs perimeter defender,
huge.
Like one of the better games I can in recent of the season at the very least, with how disruptive he was defensively at times. And I thought tonight was just like a perfect example of why I defended the trade at first, because I thought Caleb Martin defensively is a much more versatile defender than Quentin Grimes is, admittedly, but also just a more versatile defender than anyone really the Mavs had on the roster.
Yeah.
You saw it at times tonight.
They needed that point of attack defender. I wanted Quentin Grimes to be that. Turned out he was a way better offensive player than a defensive player, by the end of his stint, and we've seen that tenfold with the Sixers even. But, yeah, Caleb Martin was brought in to be that defensive stopper, and I hadn't really seen it. I'd see glimpses of it, and you're like, all right, I can see maybe where he's going to be that guy. But today, against a guy like Trae Young, who else would guard Trae Young on the Mavericks? They would ask Max Christie to probably do it, or Najee. Yeah. And I think Caleb Martin was absolutely incredible. Kid was closing with him. He played him 27 minutes, And Martin also on the offensive end. I'd give him some credit on that end too. He was driving, and man, he is so fast. Like I did not realize how quick he is. Like when you see him in person, he just covers so much ground so quickly with the ball, without the ball. Like he's all of a sudden on the other end of the court, just in transition. When he has the ball, he just takes the ball from one end to the other. And you're like, wow, oh my gosh, he's so quick. And yeah, he had an absolutely crazy impact on this game because he was defending Trae Young a lot in that second half.
Yeah, I mean, he had a possession in the second half where he was just sitting in a chair against Trae and just defensively wouldn't let him get anywhere. Trae, like poked it away. Trae kept his that gave Trae his dribble back, and so Trae then drove, and Caleb Martin was all over him and funneled him right into AD, who blocked the shot. Like that was the defensive sequence right there. Where
24 seconds left. It was huge.
Caleb Martin clamped up Trae, and then AD blocks it, and it's like, oh, that is the vision that they're seeing defensively. We are like, oh, this could be a very good defense if they're all fully healthy.
Yeah, you get Dennis Smith Jr., Caleb Martin.
Yeah, Dennis Smith. I mean, that would be nasty if Dennis Smith Jr. comes to the team, like as your guard defender. Offensively, I don't know how you score, but
yeah, really. I guess you do. Well, you still have to have a point guard out there, so I guess it's still Dinwiddie, who the Mavs think is a good defender. I don't know if we think he's a good defender.
Yeah,
they throw him out there, but yeah, a Dinwiddie, Caleb Martin, PJ Washington, AD, Lively lineup is just, that is going to be hard for anybody to score on once they get it all and put it all together.
Yeah, I mean, you run into certain problems, but yeah, that's Dennis Smith Jr.'s in the Mavs game tonight. Was he seen post? Oh, he's in the hallway with the team.
Yeah, he was hanging out. He was in the VIP lounge. He was dapping up Dwight Powell before the game. Like he's here.
That's very interesting.
He's here a week early. He's here I guess to get ready. But I have no inside info on whether they want to sign him or they're going to sign him or if he can be signed.
I mean, him being at the game doesn't do much for me, honestly. But him hanging around in the tunnel is a little strange, all things considered.
I mean, he only played with Dwight, right?
Can they even do that?
Sign him?
Can they sign a guy like that, or can they only convert the two-way guys?
The money becomes so complicated that
I don't know.
I think they can outright sign a player by that April 12th date or 10th date or whatever it is.
That's really interesting that he's in the tunnel and stuff. I mean, that would be interesting, but
just hanging out.
I am surprised that Dennis Smith hasn't had. I mean, I do think he's an NBA player, so that is a little surprising to me that he's.
What a career!
Yeah. I
mean, on the Mavericks, like averaging 15 points a game. Then he was off. Then he was, he bounced around a little bit. Then he was going to play football. Then he came back with the Nets, and it was actually really great and got some, all defensive votes. And then he was out of the league again.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, last year I thought he more than proved he was an NBA player.
Wild.
At least with his defense. I mean, 29% from three. Wow, I didn't realize the 3-point shooting was.
He did not shoot well. That's the reason why you don't.
Last 3 years, 22, 21, 29%.
Not a good shooter, so that's maybe holding him back a lot. Thought we got another good Klay Thompson game. 17 points, hit 5 threes. And between him and Max Christie, I think the coaching staff went to them and said, listen, anytime you get remotely open from three, pull. Yeah. Because we need to put up these threes because we can't have a game where we put up less than 30 threes in a game again.
Yeah, and Klay, you don't really need to tell that too. Christie was the one, right? Like you can almost tell a player like Christie. You can almost tell when a coaching staff goes to them.
Yes,
it says, "Hey, you need to do X, Y, and Z tonight," because he's like you said, he was bombing threes, and it was a way I was like, "All right, we have not seen this from Christie in a while." So somebody talked to him before the game. But yeah, I mean, Klay was big again. I mean, Klay's been really solid lately, and he hit that ginormous three that tied the game. Like you said, coming off of a dribble handoff, really one of the only guys on the team who could hit a shot like that. And it's funny because going into that shot, I was like, you guys don't need a three. And then I was even thinking, like, you don't really have anybody on the team that I'd feel uber comfortable with shooting a three in this moment outside of Klay. And then I was like, well, defense is going to let Klay get open down three with 50 seconds left. And Klay got open and just that sliver of space. It just reminds you that he's still just, I mean, an all-time scorer. Like, it's just unbelievable how good he is shooting the basketball. With
like 4 minutes left, he hit that deep corner two to beat the buzzer.
Yeah,
that to put them up 5, that was a big moment, I thought too. And then he also had there was a weird moment. You mentioned the 3 with 41 seconds left off of the Anthony Davis handoff. But man, I have something. Is this something or nothing? The last couple of games, the Mavs have been doing their starting lineup introductions, and Klay has been the last player and not Anthony Davis. Something or nothing?
Nothing.
Nothing at all? Okay.
Nah, I don't think so.
So interesting to me. I'm like, I get it. I respect it that Klay has been a consistent, steady force for the Mavericks, but you'd think that they would make AD the last one because he's the 10-time All-Star. He's the one they brought in, the trade, all that. I don't know.
Maybe AD said for it to be Klay. Maybe he wanted it to be Klay.
That would be amazing. See, that's a story I would want to break or want to have somebody report that if that is what it is.
You know, Klay also had a disgusting lob to AD.
Oh, the one-handed one?
Yes.
So one-handed AD dunk?
We've
Insane.
seen a few passes over the year, like over the course of the season with Klay lobbing it up to the bigs. That's kind of big because if he, with all the bigs back, Klay making passes like that, especially when he's coming off that dribble handoff or he's curling off of a screen, like that was like what happened when he lobbed that one to AD. That's going to open up space because defenses have to start to respect the threat of that. And that would just open up space for his shooting. So that's something to watch moving forward.
It's going to be playmaking by committee. You're going to need those passes from Klay. You're going to need P.J. Washington to do some of that. You're going to need Najee Marshall to make some plays like he did through that alley-oop to AD. You're going to have AD, who's had a ton of assists. He was averaging like 4 assists a game coming into tonight. You're going to have him playmake. You're going to have Lively playmake. Like, it's going to have to be by committee. Dinwiddie has stepped up in a huge way. And how many assists did he finish with tonight? 10?
Yeah.
He had
9 in the first half.
Yeah, Najee had 8 too. You're going to have playmaking by committee. And, we cannot end this show without mentioning Jaden Hardy because Jason Kidd closed with Jaden Hardy in this game. He played almost 22 minutes, hit 3 threes, 13 points, had 3 assists. This was, I thought, one of Hardy's best games in like a high leverage type game where it was close in a while. He's had games where he scored, 20 points here and there, but it was wild to see how different he can be from night to night. And I thought that it was gutsy that Kidd closed with him.
I mean, he hit one of the nastiest shots I've seen Hardy hit. That step back 3 he had. That was nasty, and made some defensive plays down the stretch. So I mean, yeah, he played really well. You gotta give props to Hardy.
Yeah, the one where he crosses up Vic Krejci and he hit that 3 at the end of the third quarter, just nasty.
Yeah, those
Absolutely
are the plays
nasty.
where you're just like, okay.
What did you think about Kidd? Kidd put him in with 1:46 left, and he put him in for Najee.
Saw the vision. It's one of those things where the game ends and they lose. We're like, what was the thought process there?
So he didn't touch the ball. I think he literally just put him in for spacing because they just needed one more shooter. Najee's not going to shoot. You know what? Like, I think that they knew, hey, he's not going to touch. We know he's not going to touch the ball. We're going to put him in literally just for spacing. And I just found that interesting because you never know. Broken play, something happens, and he has to make a decision. And now you just put the game in the hands of Jaden Hardy instead of a Najee Marshall or Max Christie or somebody.
Yeah, for sure. That was definitely what the mindset was we need floor spacing, and Najee's just not going to provide it. And that is the dilemma with the 2 bigs. Like, that's something that will pop up time and time again. Or even just closing with 1 big and AD. You want to close with Caleb Martin, especially in a game like this where his defense was so great. He's not a floor spacer, really. I mean, defenses might check for him.
He hit a 3 tonight.
Yeah, but he's not somebody
kicked both of his feet out in front of him when he.
The shot is very interesting, but he's not changing like the floor spacing dynamic for you.
Unless you play the Celtics.
So true. The Celtics are just like, that guy's getting double teamed. I do not care who's on the court.
They still have flashbacks from that Heat series.
We're playing the 96 Bulls. I don't care. Caleb Martin is getting a double team every time he crosses half court.
Yeah, it's so like everything about like roster building now is so completely different than what we've been used to the last 6 years for some reason.
Not just for the Mavs, but for just the NBA. Like, the Mavs are taking a different approach to building their roster. Approach that might feel a little outdated, but we see teams now with the double bigs. I mean, it could be that this is maybe a direction that the league might be trending more towards, where it's like, yeah, floor spacing is great, but when you play a ginormous team, and we've seen this in the playoffs, we saw the Mavericks do this to the Thunder last year. When you play that ginormous team, you're in trouble.
Yeah. Can you be more ginormous?
Yeah.
Go check out Slightly Biased, great YouTube channel. All kinds of good NBA stuff all the time. Go check out that. We also have the live show April 8th at Four Corners Brewery. Come join us and hang out. We also have the Locked On newsletter, LockedOnDaily.com. Get stuff from us every day. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs. We'll be back with another show tomorrow. And then Mavs have more games. Clippers, 2 Clippers games this weekend. Massive. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs. Peace out. Boom.
AD said he felt better after his pregame nap.
So
Shout out to all of our nap truthers.